If you had just 24 hours to survive in the Middle Ages, would you make it out alive? I thought I could. I thought it would be an adventure, a harmless trip back in time. But the moment I stepped into that medieval castle, I realized how wrong I was. You see, history books don't tell you everything. They don't tell you how the air feels heavy with the stench of burning tallow and unwashed bodies. They don't tell you about the silence, the kind that feels alive, watching you. And they certainly don't tell you that the walls themselves seem to whisper. This is my story, the 24 hours I barely survived inside a medieval castle. It started with a machine, a strange, box-shaped contraption in a dusty old workshop, humming like it was breathing. I didn't believe it would work. I mean, time travel. It's the stuff of movies. But when I pressed the lever, reality cracked. The air bent like a heat haze. My stomach flipped inside out. And suddenly, the sound of traffic outside was gone. I opened my eyes, and I was standing in the courtyard of a castle, the kind you've seen in medieval paintings. High stone walls, banners fluttering in the cold wind, the clang of blacksmiths at the forge. It was beautiful and terrifying. That's when I made my first mistake. I forgot I didn't belong here. Every step I took, every glance I gave, was wrong. My clothes? Strange. My accent? Foreign. My eyes darting around. Suspicious. In the Middle Ages, strangers weren't welcomed with a smile. They were questioned. Sometimes, with a sword at their throat. They took me to the lord of the castle, a tall, imposing man with a beard like steel wool and eyes that didn't blink for far too long. He asked me where I came from. I mumbled something about being a traveler. He didn't look convinced. But before I could think of a better lie, he smiled. That kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, and offered me food and shelter for the night. The feast looked generous. But the moment I tasted the ale, my stomach churned. Not from the taste, but from the thought. What's in it? Back then, food wasn't just nourishment. It could be a weapon. I forced myself to eat slowly, trying not to seem rude, but my eyes scanned the hall. Guards stood at every corner. Servants whispered behind their hands. And somewhere, from the shadows above, I could swear someone was watching me. That was my second mistake. I locked eyes with them, and in that moment, I knew. My 24 hours had just become a fight for survival. Night in a medieval castle is nothing like night today. There are no humming streetlights, no gentle city glow, no distant traffic. Here, the darkness is total. You can feel it pressing against your skin, and every sound is magnified. The creak of a wooden beam overhead, the scuttle of rats in the wall, the faint drip, drip, drip of water from the ceiling. I was led to a small chamber with a straw bed, a single candle, and a door that didn't have a lock. At least, not on my side. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the moment I closed my eyes, something, or someone, would be standing right over me. So instead, I listened. At first, it was just the wind. Then, the faint sound of footsteps. Not the steady march of a guard. These were slow, measured, almost cautious. They stopped right outside my door. I held my breath, my heart hammering. Whoever it was didn't knock, didn't speak. They just stood there. For how long? I couldn't tell. Minutes, maybe more. Until finally, they moved away. When dawn came, I almost convinced myself it had been my imagination. But then, I saw it, in the dust by my door. Fresh footprints, small, bare, like a child's. I decided to blend in, or at least try. I offered to help in the stables, move barrels, anything to keep people from staring too long. That's when she found me. A young maid, maybe 14, darted up to me with eyes wide in fear. She pressed something into my hand, a scrap of parchment, rough and torn, then ran off before I could speak. No words, just that map. The tower smelled of damp stone and something else, something metallic, like old blood. At the top was a locked door. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. Then, a whisper. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language I knew. But the tone was pure hatred. I turned to leave, but standing halfway down the stairs was the hooded figure from the night before. They didn't move, didn't speak, just watched me. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't curiosity anymore. It was a hunt. The cold wrapped around me like a shroud. Every breath felt sharp, each step heavier than the last. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shadow slipping through the darkness too fast to catch. My heart slammed against my ribs. Was someone, or something, watching me? I forced myself to keep moving, but the silence was crushing. Then, a door slammed somewhere deep inside the castle. The sound echoed like thunder, freezing me in place. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, a low growl rumbled close behind me. I spun around, but all I saw was darkness. Maybe it was better that way. There was no turning back now. My footsteps echoed softly as I followed the trail. Then, I saw it. Fresh blood staining the cold stone floor. Panic clenched my chest. Was someone hurt? Or worse, dead? I couldn't turn back now. A whisper brushed past my ear, barely audible but chilling enough to make my skin crawl. And from the shadows, a figure cloaked in darkness appeared. Silent, unmoving, watching. I held my breath, frozen between fear and disbelief. This place wasn't just history. It was alive, and it wasn't done with me yet. I had no choice but to descend. Each step felt like walking deeper into the heart of the castle's nightmare. The air thickened, pressing against my chest like invisible hands. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the slow, steady drip of water and my own ragged breathing. My mind raced with every horror story I'd ever heard about this place. But the deeper I went, the more I felt I was being pulled into something beyond time, beyond reason. The castle wasn't just a building. It was a trap, and I was caught in its web. I stepped into the chamber, heart hammering. The symbols on the walls pulsed with a strange light, as if alive. Then my eyes locked onto the chest in the center, a relic untouched for centuries. With trembling hands, I lifted the heavy lid. Inside, instead of treasure, I found a dusty mirror. But this wasn't any ordinary mirror. As I stared into it, my reflection twisted and changed, becoming someone else, someone from the past, someone trapped here just like me. And then it hit me. The real trap wasn't the castle itself. It was time. Because as long as I stayed, I wasn't just visiting the past. I was becoming part of it. My reflection wasn't mine anymore. It was a prisoner of time, trapped in this castle for centuries. Lost souls who never escaped. And now, I could feel their fate seeping into me, pulling me closer to a destiny I never wanted. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with the weight of centuries. I realized then that this place wasn't just a fortress. It was a prison for time itself, and I was becoming its newest captive. Panic surged, but so did determination. If I was to survive, I needed to break the cycle, to find a way back before I became a ghost in this endless story. With one last look at the mirror, I turned and sprinted toward the exit, chasing the fading light of the past. And my hope for the future. I barely made it out alive, but the castle's grip never fully released me. Even now, sometimes when the night is quiet, I hear its whispers calling me back. And maybe that's the real story of this place. A place where time traps souls, and some stories never end. Final message and call to action visual. This journey taught me that history isn't just something we read about. It lives, breathes, and sometimes it reaches out to us. The past isn't as distant as we think. If you ever find yourself standing before an ancient castle, remember, some doors are meant to stay closed. Thank you for joining me on this unforgettable journey. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were trapped in a place where time itself is the enemy? Until next time, stay curious, but be careful where you wander.